Welcome everybody to a Straub Bros Sports Show exclusive. Little bro, it's time to guard the land once again. Guardian season is upon us. Big bro Ken checking in with you with little bro Drew. Drew, our Guardians start their season on Thursday. And presented to you by the Rapids, we want to bring you this Straub Bros Sports Show short to talk about the upcoming season and opening day. Now, Straub, we kick it off Thursday at 4:10 as Tanner Bybee takes the mound against Kansas City Royals starter Cole Reagans. But before we get to that game, let's dive into this roster, preferably starting with the rotation.
Yeah, this rotation is something that I think has been the question of the offseason, of the spring training. And obviously some ups and some downs in terms of who made it, who didn't. I'm excited to just kind of see how this team kind of moves forward because obviously pitchers just get stuff ready in the spring training. So seeing what they do when the games actually matter is going to be really interesting to see.
Absolutely. Let's get to the names. Your opening day starter, as I mentioned, Tanner Bybee, followed in the rotation by Gavin Williams, Luis Ortiz, Ben Lively, and Logan Allen, who Stephen Vogt named as the fifth starter. Now, the reason we're starting with the rotation is Logan Allen being the fifth starter pushes last year's number two rotation guy, Tristan McKenzie, to the bullpen. Now, we have not talked a lot of Guardians on the show, but one of the things we did mention was how comfortable Tristan McKenzie looked in his first start in spring. And that was the last time he looked comfortable. He has not looked good in his 5 starts, a 7+ ERA. Is this fixable, or have we just seen a guy who maybe just can't figure it out on the major league level?
I think that if it is fixable, this is the way to do it. You gave him the rest of the season last year to kind of get back into pitching, kind of get his stuff back. And then now, when you started to see that there is a glimpse that he can be that guy, you give him an opportunity to just get consistent innings in that bullpen, face major league batters, get comfortable with kind of throwing again and throwing against these guys. I don't see Tristan McKenzie being someone who is going to be off the roster by the end of the season. Honestly, I think it's the opposite way. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, but I think that Tristan McKenzie is someone that needs a little bit more time that I think a lot of people are wanting him to take. I think they want him to be ready at the beginning of this season. I think this is the right way to do it, and I think it will pay dividends down the season when, 1, his arm is a little bit more healthier because he's not tagging these innings, and 2, he was able to build up and get that comfortability.
He did just have surgery. So that, that's a big thing. He did have surgery last year. So I agree with you. He's going to get innings. He's going to face major league talent. I do think it's good to point out, if we ever need a 6th starter, you know what I mean, on one of those weird days, it'll probably go to Tristan McKenzie. If a guy needs to miss a start for some silly reason, one of those rain delays that knock your starter out early, heck, even just a guy having a bad outing, Tristan's going to be there. He's going to get minutes, and hopefully that can build up. And I agree with you. I truly believe towards the end of the year, he could possibly bump one of those guys out of the rotation. Now, my other question for you about the rotation, beyond Tristan McKenzie, can these 5 guys, 6 if you include Tristan McKenzie, Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, Luis Ortiz, Ben Lively, Logan Allen, can they keep this staff together? Can they keep this team in ball games until the ace, Shane Bieber, is back and ready to go?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that's going to be the question of the season. Besides kind of the hitting aspect, in terms of pitching, you have a lot of, I would say, big questions to answer, and they're all different questions based on who you're looking at. Tanner Bybee, you just got this massive 5-year extension. Can you be this ace until Shane Bieber gets back and then be a solid number 2. Gavin Williams, you had an absolutely amazing spring training. Let's now see it translate into the regular season. Ben Lively, how much do you got left in the tank? Luis Ortiz, can you go from a team where you were pitching a lot to now you have a little less of a responsibility on you? Can you bring it? These are kind of the questions that we're going to be asking. And honestly, if 3 out of the 5 of these questions are answered positively, you have a Shane Bieber coming back that in this day and age, Tommy John is not a career ender. It is honestly a plus to some of these guys. They throw even better when they come back. And we haven't even touched on a Cy Young winner in John Means that we have potentially coming into form even later in the season, kind of actually being that Ben Lively role. This is going to be a very interesting season for the Guardians. And I know we said that last year because there's a lot of questions. We have a lot of answers that, were answered, but I think it's less about unknown and more about, can you take the next step in your development? Because I think that's a big question for a lot of these guys, kind of that first broke into the team last year, maybe even 2 years ago.
I agree. And we talked about it. It was the key last year. And it ended up being the downfall of this team was that we did not have enough healthy starters. We were running arms out there consistently. The way we ran Clase out there, the way we ran some of those relievers out there, it just became too much. So we're going to talk about it. But the easier part is during the regular season, we saw this team was able to get through with glue taped on the starting rotation and just having an amazing back end and bullpen. Now, you cannot always rely on that. It's not a given every year. However, we've kind of figured out that we've got the arms in this bullpen. Hopefully, Clase has taken off as much time as possible to heal up. No, I don't expect him to go out and set the world or set the major league record in saves and stuff like that, or the AL record. And I don't expect that, a 0 point whatever ERA. I do expect this bullpen to be a solid top 10, top 8 bullpen once again, though. And if you can now piece together a healthy rotation, that's the thing, a healthy rotation with Bybee and Williams, I think what you can get out of the other 3 combined will get you through until Bieber comes back. And then Bieber slots in probably to begin with as your number 2 guy. And then look at that rotation. Tanner Bybee, Shane Bieber. Then you have Gavin Williams. Then we go, okay, we could spot start, and I'm talking playoffs. We could spot start a Logan Allen, or you know what I mean, or somebody else. The depth is there this year as well. We didn't have a lot of depth last year. We had hope on the top end with Bieber and Bybee and Tristan McKenzie, honestly. Now it's, okay, well, we technically, with Bieber coming back, have 7 guys who could start a ball game if Tristan can get better. Not a lot of teams can say that.
No, and we'll see, obviously, kind of as the year goes on, how that pecking order goes. If guys that maybe we thought could slide in a 4 or 5 maybe just don't have it and have to kind of go down, and it'll sort itself out. Yeah. But I think the pitching is kind of it's a waiting game for pitching, and we're going to talk about it here now. The other question that we're going to have, I think, is kind of going to be answered within the first couple months or so is, what is this hitting going to look like for a team that's kind of lost a little bit in terms of, your power in Josh Naylor, and then your maybe not absolutely setting the world on fire in terms of hitting, but a consistent guy in the lineup and a great glove in Andres Jimenez.
Absolutely. Now, this is the Guardians have not for certain put in the opening day roster, but this is as close to a potential lineup as we can, or roster as we can get. Austin Hedges and Bo Naylor in as your catchers. I do want to give Austin Hedges a shout out. 3 home runs during the spring training. The bat is rolling for Austin Hedges. Basically, for the catching position for the Cleveland Guardians, is Bo ready to take a bigger step this year in taking that job for himself? Every time he doesn't, or every time he needs some help or a day off, Austin Hedges is going to be there. We know what Austin Hedges is going to give you behind the plate, which is a great defensive catcher, and a guy who can call a great ball game. On the offensive side of the plate, he is what he is. He's going to get an occasional home run and a timely hit, and he's going to go 0 for and 1 for a lot of games as well.
Yeah.
Now,
And
go ahead.
it's not a bad thing, because he is very much that locker room guy. You can anybody player who has played with him has said how great of a guy he is and how he brings the locker room up and really fuels kind of that grind during the summer months and kind of makes it a lot easier.
100%.
Now for Bo,
I think Tristan Thompson from the Cavaliers.
Right. Now for Bo, I think that there was a lot of expectation put on him. Obviously, we can all kind of say he hasn't met the expectations we put on him, but he hasn't had an awful spring.
Nope.
Yes, a sub 200 average, I can kind of live with that. But 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, kind of getting into the swing of things. This is a year for Bo Naylor where, whether it's defensively or it's offensively, I think we are going to expect to see a jump or a step in the right direction, whether that's because of Austin Hedges or because of, maybe the bat finally clicks. But he's someone to watch out for kind of coming into the first couple months to see where has he kind of gotten to in these past couple years.
I agree with that. And it's also, you want some pop out of your catcher. Your catcher isn't naturally an average hitter. So I like to see those RBIs. I like to see those home runs. I want to see some pop out of Bo. And throwing getting a little bit better at throwing runners out. But I agree with you. I think the potential is always there, and the step can be there. Now, I did put the positions in naturally, but what the Guardians are looking like they're going to be lining up with, more than likely Austin Hedges starting opening day. You have Jose Ramirez at third base. It is apparent that Brian Rocchio is going to start at short. Gabriel Arias is going to start at second, and Carlos Santana, my man, is going to start at first base. Now, I actually have an unpopular opinion and something that might be controversial, and here I'll even pull this down. I think this is a better defensive infield than last year. And I know everybody's going to go, you had a diamond plated gold glove out there with Andres Jimenez. Yes, Bo Naylor was a liability sometimes at first base. Yes, he could make some great plays, but there were times where he just was out of position and couldn't get to balls. And here's what I'm going to spoiler alert. If you don't remember, that's not Carlos Santana. That's also a gold glove over there at first base just last year. Okay, so with age, the reflexes have not gone away from Carlos Santana. I love Brian Rocchio's defense, and I think Gabriel Arias is a great is a above average good defensive player as well. We know what Jose is at third base. Am I wrong?
No, I think if we're looking at player to player, obviously you lose an immense talent defensively in Andres Jimenez, but if we look at the aggregate, you can see that Andres Jimenez covered up a lot of Josh Naylor's faults for first base. And it was very apparent that when it kind of came down to it, Josh basically was running to first base anytime that ball was down the right side of the field unless it came right at him. With this lineup now, you have, like I said, you have Gold Glover and Carlos Santana. We really haven't seen what Gabriel Arias can do at the major league level at second base, but I do believe if he can handle the hot corner at third, he can handle second base decently easily. But we're going to kind of see what happens there. And then, Brian Rocchio, an amazing fielder at shortstop, and the bat finally coming around, which is an amazing thing. And Jose, honestly, I think his fielding has improved year over year as he's gotten older, which is an amazing thing to see. So in the aggregate, I would say we are equal. Yeah, we are equal, if not better than we were. But I think that's just going to kind of come down to how many plays does Arias have to make based on kind of where he's positioned at, because Rocchio can get that up the middle. Carlos Santana can make, that diving stop going to his right side. But when it comes to that spot where maybe Carlos just isn't fast enough to get it, or it's a little too far for Rocchio, what are the plays Arias can do that can almost equal what Jimenez can do defensively? Not every time, but in those moments. I think that's going to be your big question.
I agree. I 100% agree. Now, into the outfield position. Stephen Kwan locking down your left field spot. Lane Thomas taking over in center field, and basically the right field position is basically going to be decided come opening day between newly reacquired right fielder
Yeah.
Nolan Jones and then big Christmas Yansky Noel. I truly believe that if you want to, and this is throughout most of the regular season, your best defensive lineup has Yansky Noel DHing and Nolan Jones, Lane Thomas, and Stephen Kwan as your outfield. Now, come playoff time, when we need to maybe have a different, Kyle Manzardo is in there at first base. If guys want to DH, you know what I mean? There's spot for Yansky. He wasn't bad defensively in the outfield at all in terms of tracking the ball. We all know what kind of arm he's got out there. But that kind of how right field is playing out for the Guardians.
Yeah, and I think the issue with the Guardians, I think the only issue that they're going to have in terms of kind of where to put players is you kind of have 3 DH options in Jhonkensy Noel, Kyle Manzardo, and Carlos Santana, and it's one of those things where one of them is going to have to sit every game, whether that's Manzardo at first.
Especially with the way that Stephen Vogt has shown that he will DH Jose Ramirez as well to get him a day off.
Right, and you want to get Nolan Jones at bats. You just traded for the guy, so you were going to have him out there. And so that's going to be a big question. Do you want Jhonkensy's arm? Do you want Nolan Jones's range? You're going to have to decide there. And then do you want the more defensive player in Santana, or do you want to kind of get do you want to get Manzardo for more fielding opportunities? So maybe, next year when the time comes, he's going to fully take over that spot. Those are the kind of questions that we're going to see answered. But honestly, I haven't seen an issue with Vogt kind of getting guys playing time. The only fault that I ever gave Francona was that sometimes he would play guys that you don't think really were given the opportunity, but that's because he wanted to rely on them. Vogt is not going to do that. He's going to put the guys in the position that are going to succeed. And so the fielding, I don't think, is the issue. We're going to see how the pitching is. The only thing that I am going to be concerned about is the hitting, and that's what's going to happen. Manzardo had a great spring training. Noel had a great spring training. Rocchio had a great spring training. Kwan has always had a great spring training. Lane Thomas, I think, had the best spring training of his career. 4 home runs and 16 RBIs. It was absolutely fantastic spring. But there was also some struggling. Carlos Santana didn't do that great in spring training. Bo Naylor, and like we said, was kind of struggling in terms of just making contact. These are going to be some things where we're going to have some ups, but we're going to have some downs. And if just those downs can get kind of a little bit better as the season goes on, I think we're going to be in great shape.
I think those hitters, I think Carlos Santana is going to come around. You're talking about a vet who's using spring training like a veteran. The thing that I think, especially if Lane Thomas can continue what he became the entire second half of that of his pickup with us, struggled those first 2 weeks, and then once he caught fire, and that was that. Yeah. And we remember what he did in the playoffs. I think the thing is, with the Guardians, you can say this year, they now have 3 consistent bats in the lineup, where last year it was really only 2. It was Stephen Kwan and it was Jose Ramirez. I think this year you have Stephen Kwan, you have Jose Ramirez, you have Carlos Santana, who has shown throughout his career to be a round average to above average hitter and a very clutch player. The clutch rate numbers for Carlos Santana are outstanding. And you throw in Lane Thomas, you have the potential for 4 to 5 consistent bats this year. And if you have that, you're in the running. Speaking of which, to wrap this up, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and I'll put myself back on it. I got 3 questions. 1, can the Guardians make the playoffs? 2, can they win the division again? 3, can this team make a deep playoff run?
So I've been reading a lot. I've been reading kind of what people are saying about the Guardians, and funny enough, it's exactly how they expected us to be last year. They're at about 78.5, I want to say, is Vegas for win total. I've seen us as high as second. I haven't seen a single one that puts us as winning the division, and I've seen us as low as 4th because obviously the White Sox are the White Sox. But the biggest thing that I saw off numerous sites is, yes, we rank them as this, but we are absolutely expecting them to blow away our predictions again and make us look like idiots. And I think that's what they're going to do. Do I think that they're going to be running away with the division like they did last year? No, I don't think so. I think it's going to take Bieber to come back. I think it's going to take a late effort if they are going to win the division to win. And I do actually think they will. Are they going to make the playoffs if they win the division? Yes. A deep playoff run. Now, this is a very interesting question because this involves Bieber coming back to peak form. I do believe this involves either a McKenzie bullpen or starter being a very key cog in this one. And I also think it also involves a John Means coming in and being maybe not his Cy Young self, but a dominant self to kind of round out that rotation. And it also means we need some clutch hitting like we did last year. I believe this team is poised for an ALDS. Do I believe in ALCS or a World Series? I think that there is a lot of good talent in the American League this year. I think that there is going to be a shortcoming, I believe, just because we just don't have the lineup we need right now. But I think this is a year we get rid of that. We blow away expectations. We again make these guys look like idiots. And I think if we don't win the division, we are a first or second wild card team.
I got bold predictions. First bold prediction, the Guardians will not win the division. Second bold prediction, the Guardians will be the first wild card team. My third, the Guardians will at least go to Game 6 of the ALCS. I think the one advantage this team has over last year's team is a mixture of a couple key veterans and two, pitching that is coming to be healthy towards the later end of the season instead of what we normally have, which is our pitching falling apart towards the end of the season. And I think a move is on the horizon for this team. I think the potential for Means and Bieber to come back healthy means we may potentially move one of these other starters. And I think we do another Lane Thomas type deal and we get ourselves another bat come down the hot stove, come down the stretch of the trade deadline. So give me the Guardians to make the playoffs as a wild card and make a run to the ALCS.
That'd be a fun ride.
Absolutely. Well, check them out on Thursday. Like we said, 4:10 in Kansas City. They will be home. I think it's 2 weeks for the home opener. We will definitely talk more Guardians until then. Shout out to the Cuyahoga Falls Rapids for sponsoring today's episodes. Drew, anything else?
Not really. I'm just really excited. I need baseball to start so badly.
Cannot wait. I got the hot dogs being ready to be fired up because we eat hot dogs on opening day. That'll do it for us on the Straub Bros Sports Show. Guard the Land exclusive.